Hey, how you all doing? Sorry. Anyhow, I'm going to talk a little bit today on some different topics, and I got some evidence for you too. So anyhow, the first part here is regarding misinterpretations of the inspired Word of God. And particularly here, cannot serve two masters. Matthew 6:2-4. No man can serve two masters. For either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. Now, cannot serve two masters. That has to do with two minds, two wills, two ways of being. The will of God be done, or the will of man be done, equals two minds, two wills, two masters. In the beginning, Adam and Eve were one mind and one heart with God, in that they did the will of God, as if God, but not God. But then they did what God told them not to do. They ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. That was the birth of the will of man be done. Another mind, another master, a selfish master. So now we have two wills, two minds, two masters in play, a tug of war of sorts, good and evil, right and wrong. All men come up short. Anyhow, that goes to the root cause of the state of affairs in this world. Man's will be done or God's will be done. That's it. That's the two. Regarding the payment for our sins, the sacrifice of the Son Jesus was not to pay or redeem us of financial debt. He came to resurrect the dead, being those who took on and personified a government-issued graven identity. God did not give his Son Jesus to pay or redeem us of our worldly debts. He gave his Son to pay the penalty for our sin, being the transgression of the law. 1 John 3:4. Whosoever committeth sin transgresseth also the law, for sin is the transgression of the law. That is the wages of sin. People think it's got something to do with wages like money. Wage war, there's all kinds of waging going on. It's got nothing. Anyhow, this has nothing to do with money. That is the wages of sin. Nothing to do with a paycheck or being paid for your time. The wages of sin is death, meaning he who transgresses the law, thou shalt have no other gods before me, takes on a new identity, that of a person, a graven image, a dead fiction. Those are the dead God speaks of in the Bible. Do they not refer to Jesus as the sacrificial lamb? The sacrificial lamb in the Old Testament is what they did. They sacrificed lambs. You go back to the Old Testament, they used to sacrifice a lamb. That was the penalty they had to pay for offending a law, or violating a law. Sacrifice a lamb. I offended the law. Okay, you got to blah, 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 and sacrifice a lamb. So the Old Testament was all about sacrificing of lambs. Anyhow, the payment by the way of the Son, Jesus, is of no effect if one continues or is continuously transgressing the law. In other words, if you obey Canadian law or U.S. law or American law or Australian law or the law of any country, the sacrifice, the payment is of no effect. For whosoever's law you obey, that is your God. So just to be clear on that, Jesus was not sacrificed to pay us our debts. It was to pay the penalty for our transgression of the law, the sin. However, if people are still sinning, then the payment is of no effect. And lastly here, regardless of the rightness or wrongness, the Christian name or surname thing in and of itself will not save you. The legal system has jurisdiction over persons, fictional beings, period. You can tell them all day long what your Christian name is, or that I do not have a surname, but it won't do you no good. Not for the most part. Some people might get lucky once in a while. Thing is, as I've said before, they will find a record on you, evidence that you used the registered birth legal name that you returned, and they will stick it to you every time. Most times. It might be the odd exception, but generally speaking, it's not going to do you any good. That's why I keep emphasizing the fact persons are fictional beings, and I am not a fictional being. I can't be this and that. It's not possible. Not being a person, their laws do not apply to me. They cannot stick it to me, regardless what my name is. Simple, eh? And more to come, as I say in the next video here. Or pardon me, later on in this video. And now I'm just going to take a little bit of a break and get my other papers out here for that. Thanks. God bless. So what I'm going to talk about now, we had a Reclaiming Securities Zoom meeting last night on this part here. First off, you cannot issue money if you do not own property. In the old days, gold was the money, the gold was your property, that was the money. You wanted to purchase a home, you had to give up your property, your gold, in exchange for the home. right? Even exchange, whatever the agreed upon price is. As per reclaiming your securities, the estate owns the property. The estate can and does issue money / promissory notes upon your authority / signature. This is explained in the Reclaim Your Securities 600 plus pages. I'm providing information here, food for thought. I'm not telling anyone how to use it. Think for yourself. Matthew 10:16 set the tone here. Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be ye therefore wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove. And I would add, these wolves are dressed in sheep's clothing. So now you know the world you're in. You're in the midst of wolves. Lawyers, judges, the whole legal system. And everyone in it. Now keeping in mind, everyone is deceived. Everyone is deceived. I have information from 2 court cases to back up what I have been saying about identity and the attorney of record. Firstly, I'm going to review a couple main points. Identity is not what you are, but what you are of a mom and of a dad. And of course, men and women are of God. Of means from or belonging to. That is your identity. You cannot change your identity, what you are of, but you can appear to be something else. If you got and used a birth certificate, you now have two identities: one you are, one you appear as. We began this embodiment as sons and daughters of God, and then sometime after that assumed a new identity, that of a son of a country. That is the basis why you and your children are in bondage, and your property as well. Why you own nothing. You were turned. I provide lots of information on this in our tricks, traps, and deceptions videos in a playlist by that title, and then again we had some Zoom recordings on the subject with respect to reclaiming securities, people. Now, this is important. The provision of a birth certificate, and I got evidence of this, is to provide you with a government-issued fictitious identity. Any words you're not familiar with, make sure you look them up. And it's good to get to the etymology on words as well. Information entered to register the birth is about the baby. I'm talking about the statement of birth here. That baby has the face of God. Then, sometime after that, an application was made for birth certificate. And when that happens, the applicant authorizes the release of that information as per Ontario, Canada. That's how it works here. As per Ontario, Canada, the release of that information to the Minister of Government and Consumer Services to receive the services requested. This took the information from the private file into the public form, which then issued a birth certificate evidencing, among other things, the place of the birth of a child of the state now, and a government-issued identity. This baby has the face of a Canadian and belongs to Canada. It is this identity you knowingly or unknowingly adopted, along with the liabilities associated therewith. This is the mask, your new identity, a new face, the face of a fictional son of a fictional country, a person that has a face before the law, their law, which is just an act. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm not a member of the Screen Actors Guild. I don't have a license to act. But it's not law, it's an act. You want to find out the law, read the first 5 books of the Bible. That is the law. It is 100% mental imagery, imagination that's got us, that we're bound into here. All this fictitious stuff. And most people have no clue. Start to educate your friends. Wake them up to this. More people that know about this person thing and the fictional aspect of it. We can disempower all these government people. Anyhow, that is the change of how the change of identity occurred, and furthermore, how you gave body to, personified a person, a fictional being. If you're a man, then upon presentment of the birth certificate, you are seen as a Canadian man of and belonging to Canada. Everything you do after that, you do as a Canadian man. There's man and there's Canadian man. You see that? The Canadian or the Australian man or Englishman modifies the word man. It's an adjective. So everything you do after that, you do as a Canadian man. If they change the name of Canada tomorrow to Kirkle, then you be a Kirkle man. The real you, your identity, a face of God, will not change. But the identity documents will. the mask, the fictional being face will. And the birth certificate is known as a foundational identity document. Now, I have two court cases I'm going to share with you here. I have to shut this down and switch over to the screen share program. But the first case is a Supreme Court of Canada case. It took place in 1890. I call it the Three Hats case. I'll just stop there and I'll do that screen share. All right, this is a Supreme Court of Canada case. When I mentioned took place in 1890. I call it the Three Hats case. Just so you can see the style and cause here. You can find it yourself, Supreme Court of Canada. I'm going to go down to page 26 here. This one's dealing with the attorney of record. Fellow's name was Fontaine. And to further avoid all possibility of obstruction and delay to the plaintiff, he, meaning Fontaine, appeared as attorney of record for himself as defendant. So there he is. He's appearing as attorney of record as himself for himself as defendant. Now, we would never do that because the defendant, as we know, is a person. So, like I've been saying, for example, if you're entering the court, my name is John Paul Smith, and I'm the attorney of record appearing for the defendant. See, the reason you're saying appearing for the defendant is because in those courts, if you don't appear, even if you're standing there and the judge is talking to you, but you don't appear, this is what they're looking for, appearance. You could get charged with a contempt or arrested for non-appearance, even though you're there and the judge is talking to you. Later on, only one witness is examined for the plaintiff, and that witness is the same Fontaine, who thus appears on the record in threefold capacity of defendant, of attorney, and of a witness. Okay, so there you go. There's no, just to give legitimacy, to maybe take some doubt for people about this attorney of record thing. So again, if you're going into court, you walk in, my name is John Paul Smith, I'm the attorney of record appearing for the defendant. First, the defendant would be John Paul Smith, same name as you. This is why I say two beings, same name, one fiction, one real, one I am, one I cannot possibly be. The objective, of course, is, well, it depends what your strategy is, but one objective could be to whether the person doesn't actually exist. Well, then the case is over. And remember, the attorney is named on the pleading, and the attorney is not the person. It's not the person on there. It's the attorney of record on the pleading. Has to be on the pleading because fictional beings can't speak. So obviously something's got to be on the pleading to speak for it. So anyhow, that's that case. I'll stop that screen share there. And I want to pull up this other case here now. Call it the Staufen case. A little bit of background on this case. This fellow here, I stumbled upon this. This case was 2001. I don't remember exactly, but it was 10, 15, 20 years ago, maybe. I don't remember. But this is a fellow who had amnesia or claimed amnesia. He couldn't remember his name, where he was born, his mom and dad's name. He had no memory of anything. What he's doing here in this case this is in Canada. As you can see, there's the style and cause at the top there. And I'm going to put a link to this video, by the way, in the description area under this video down here. You click on the show more button, you'll see the link to this case. You can, at the British Columbia court website there, you can download it, read it for yourself. It's only 6 pages. I'm just going to go over the main parts here. So his birth was not registered. He didn't, well, let me put it this way. He couldn't prove that his birth was registered. And if it was, where it was registered, Canada, which province, which country. And they actually tried to help, and they went to various countries around the world to try to find out where maybe his birth was registered, the event of his birth was registered, but they were not successful. Short story is he lost this case and he went on appeal. I have the appeal as well, but you don't need to see that same mumbo jumbo being talked about. He lost that as well for the reasons stated. Now, I've said in videos that even if your birth isn't registered, they will treat you or deem you to be a person. And here we go. The petitioner, Philip Staufen, appeared in person. Remember, his birth is not registered anywhere. They couldn't find anything. So for all intents and purposes, his birth is not registered, but there is. He's appearing in person. Even though he's got no birth documents, birth was not registered. And I get it. He's the applicant. Neither here nor there. The birth was not registered. They're still treating him as a person. Remember, a person has a face before the law. Their law, man does not. And that's from the United Nations on civil and political rights, whatever it is. Everyone has the right to appear as a person before the law. Here's the key part here. What the judge is saying this application is about. In essence, the petitioner wants this court to provide him with an identity. let's think about this. I get Mr. Staufen's ignorant of a lot of stuff here, I would assume and presume, but let's think about this. First off, he's got the face of God, so that is his identity. So he really doesn't need the court to provide him with an identity, but this guy's circumstances are exceedingly rare in that he's got nothing to work from. He's got no statement of birth, no registration of birth, no certificate of live birth, no birth certificate, none of that stuff. He has none of it. So, but there, anyhow, that's what this is about. He's asking the court to provide him with an identity. Even though he already has an identity, the face of God, he's asking the court to provide him with an identity. And there it is. The birth certificate is a government-issued fictitious identity. Anything of government, if it's not of God, it's like persons like Dirty Harry. It's a fictional being. It's a dead entity because it has no life because it's not of God. That's the main one part I wanted to show you there. Now, there's more here in Parents Patry for those who are interested in that. They explain it quite well, the limitations and that jurisdiction of Parents Patry. But there's one other thing in here, and they also talked about it in the appeal. And what they were looking for, they for Mr. Staufen was some kind of birth document that has his given name on it. They didn't say his surname on his given name, which with a document which contains a record of his date and place of birth and the given and names and surnames of his parents. So it's looking for the given name and surname of his mom and dad's. That's what they're looking for. If he can provide us with that information, maybe we can find the birth record, but they would also need to know his proper given name. Now, this Mr. Staufen, they don't even know if that's his proper name because he woke up in a hospital in Toronto and they just put the name Mr. Staufen on the hospital records there. And but nobody was able to actually verify if that was his true identity or his proper name. So, but that's the big thing I wanted to show there is again, when you apply for birth certificate, you're being asked, you're basically asking the government to provide you with another identity, a fictitious identity. Not making this stuff up. So again, I'm going to put a link to this case in the bottom in the description area underneath this video, just on the Staufen case here. So again, just to remind you, if a birth is not registered or you never got a birth certificate, they will treat or recognize you as a person just like they did Mr. Staufen. And also to remind you, the law does not feign the impossible. I keep harping on the person thing. Just a little off the cuff here. The biggest struggle people seem to have with reclaiming your securities is that, one, I'm not even sure if they're doing the paperwork properly, but their mindset is I think, is a little bit skewed. And anyhow, if the government is perceiving you're a person, then that's a problem. That's why I keep emphasizing the aspect of the person here, is to be highly aware of that and make that an integral part of the situation. Because here's the point: the government created the person; it's their person, right? And if you're not the person, then you don't have any liability. I've talked about all of this stuff in the previous videos. So they made it; they own it. Owner pays, right? No brainer. Yeah. So anyhow, I think that was it for here. Just going to pause this for a moment here. Actually, I'm going to stop the screen share. Thanks on that. And then I'm going to stop the recording. That's all I wanted to do there, I think. Where the heck is that? Oh, yeah, pause it. Yeah, so anyhow, Mr. Staufen, he already had a face and identity, but he petitioned the court for another one. And the same things happen to you and I when we get a birth certificate. We have the face of God, then we go apply for birth. So we're applying to another God now, another king, another source of law, Canadian law, and using their laws to apply for stuff. And as soon as we do that, we're buying ourselves to it. All kinds of things happen here. And with respect to the attorney of record thing, if you're appearing in court and that is the attorney of record, and the judge was to say to you, you're not an attorney, what would you do? If you said you're not the attorney of record, first off, you're not a licensed attorney. You look up attorney of record, you don't have to be licensed for that. There's licensed attorneys, yeah. The fact that you can hire a lawyer means you already have power of attorney. You are an attorney that you can do that. Secondly, if the judge was to say you're not an attorney of record or you're not an attorney, then you just apologize and say, oh, I'm sorry, then I shouldn't be here. Pack up and leave. Leave. You don't argue. I said we don't argue. Wise as a serpent, harmless as a dove. Hence the strategy. If the judge accepts that I'm the attorney of record for the person, great, case is done. If he doesn't, then I walk out. If on my way out, he says something like, if you don't come back, I'll have you charged with contempt or have you arrested for non-appearance, whatever. turn around, tell them, like, blah, 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 blah. You just told me I'm not the attorney. I have no business here. And all men are created equal. So where are you getting the authority to lord over another man? This kind of stuff. This is the kind of knowledge and understanding to people would be wise to acquire, in my estimation, anyhow. So, just put a pause on this, make sure I've said everything I had to say, and we'll stop the video. Thanks. That's it. So God bless. Thanks for listening, putting up with me, and we'll get back to you when we do. I'm taking off for a week to spend some time with my grandsons. Looking forward to that. Little masters of disaster. They can take a perfectly pristine home, and within 5 minutes, it's trashed. The playroom, I mean. I kid you not. I got to get a picture of the pristine environment here, and like a before and after picture. But anyway, you don't want to hear about that. Love you. God bless. Light of God never fails. Not possible. Keep on keeping on. Oh, yes. What I wanted to say was this. With respect to this person thing, as people start to catch on to that, you can start to educate your friends about it. So they're also educated about it and wise about it. And then you get a bunch of people together. The more the merrier, the more the better, okay? And for people in Ontario or Canada, for example, you can go to your members of provincial parliament or the federal parliament. Let them know that you know what's going on here and you're not taking it anymore. Start exposing this stuff, but not just in the medias, but I mean, taking it to these politicians that can do something about it. You can pass all the laws you want, but your laws apply to persons. We're men and women here, so you need to do something to stop it. Something to think about, seriously, because this whole system, this whole legal system is fiction. Everything that's being done to people is fiction. But people don't understand that, so when they do, they can start to break free of that fiction. We can disempower the fiction. Enough people come together on this, so I would suggest people start thinking about this kind of thing. Yeah, let's get educated. We got the evidence from appeals court justice in the Netherlands, who's a law professor, blah, blah, blah. I got it in the video, one of these videos here. Also provided in our evidence package with the Reclaim Your Securities information pack. Here's the evidence. The person's a fictional being. Your law says fictional being. Do I look like a fictional being? Come on. So more people get educated on that, you can start to spread it around the globe and disempower this whole fictional Fargan thing, this Alice in Wonderland nonsense. God bless. Love you. Talk to you soon. Bye. Just one more thing here with the person thing. If someone's willing to take the bull by the horns in this, I honestly don't have the time right now to do that, but someone's willing to put like a website or an educational format or, set up podcasts or something like that. We can start to educate people around the globe about this person's a fictional being thing so they can wake up to that and get more people together to have that knowledge, and then strengthen numbers to take that to government people to let them know we know your legislation speaks to persons. Persons are fictional beings. Here's the evidence from one of your own. We're men and women. You need to do something to stop that, imposing liabilities on us and treating us like we're persons. Persons are fictional beings. We're not fictional beings. That's not possible that I can be this and that. Not possible. Judge will tell you in the court, he's talking to you. Yes, I'm deeming you to be a person. So there's two beings here with the same name. It's not possible you can be both things. So this is the kind of stuff we can put together and start to educate people, and like I say, take it to the politicians, people in government, to let them know we know, and start to take the power from them that we've foolishly given them. That's it. God bless. Love you. Later. God never fails. Not possible. Keep on keeping on. Love you.